All right, welcome back to the Tul World podcast. I'm your host, David Jew, and I'm here with Master Jew.
How's it going there, Mr. Jew?
It's been pretty good. We missed last week due to certain things, such as coming back from the World Championships and also some other stuff.
Being sick.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was sick first, and then we went to the World Championships, and then you got sick, so luckily we had some in the bank. Yeah, but we did miss last week, so.
But we're all healthy now.
That's right.
I think.
Anyway, so thought we kind of cover the World Championships and talk a little bit about some things that maybe you saw as an umpire and some things that I saw as a coach/competitor.
And actually, I am organizing a little panel. We will be discussing some of those things as well. Mm-hmm. Some guys around the country, or not the country, but around the world, and their perspective as well. But we're getting a head start.
Right. So why don't you go first? What did you think about the competition?
You know, I was surprised to see the level of competition. I thought was pretty high. Mm-hmm. It's pretty good, considering most of us haven't competed in a couple years, 3 or 4 years maybe.
Yeah.
Well, the last World Championship back in 2018, that was in Argentina. So you're talking about 4 years. Then we hit COVID. Our guys actually haven't sparred in quite some time. It's only recently that we did do some sparring.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was a little surprised based around the competition as well.
I wonder if it's because maybe certain countries didn't have the lockdown as much as other countries. And obviously we didn't have some countries that didn't show up.
Yeah.
Japan was one of them. I think a lot of the Asian countries weren't there, although we don't get a large contingency from Asia that much anyway.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of expensive. Maybe that's what it is.
It is kind of expensive, right?
But too far away.
Yeah. I think one thing I was kind of surprised about was when the tournament first started was quite an emphasis on leg control lately. And I thought that I saw a lot of the other countries were doing that very well. A lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
I noticed in the tournament. But also I haven't been to a World Championships in quite a while.
Or maybe you forgot.
I forgot. Well, it's been over 6 years now since the last time I went. Or maybe I'm a little bit more observant, but I did notice that there was a lot of flexibility going on.
I think it's always been there a little bit. What I kind of found interesting, I think over the years, as far as sparring's concerned, a lot of hand techniques, almost like boxing in a way, with some kicks in there. But this time I think I saw a little bit more footwork. I really like it that way myself, as far as sparring. And as an umpire, I just don't score multiple, just like flurries of punches. Can you really see a clean hit? That's the question. For me, anyway.
So going further, what is your kind of game plan for our next couple tournaments, or what are we working on?
Well, I think, first of all, we got to get back into the swing of things. I mean, we're just starting to do that now. We're doing a lot of in-house sparring, right, in class, or picking that up a little bit more. Surprisingly, a lot of our students don't actually have sparring gear, and yet they're fairly high rank. We believe most of our green belts and above are required to do some type of sparring competition. And since the last couple of years, they've been actually moving forward without actually having to do that. We do make them do some type of competition, specifically to what we've been doing is that 2020 competition, which is kind of cool, working on that reflex, power. So it's a great tool. What's your thoughts on that? Obviously not a complete substitute.
Well, no, we've been doing a lot more sparring lately.
Right. Which is kind of interesting because, you know, that 2020 vest, you can actually hook it up to other people and score it from there. So I think that's kind of an interesting idea. Obviously at the World Championship, this last World Championship, the scoring system wasn't running properly. And so we kind of went back to the old school paper and pencil.
Yeah.
Good and bad. What's your thoughts on that?
Right. The thing I don't like about the scoring system, like an electronic one, and not the one that we use in our tournaments, but like a body vest or like headgear that would register the points, is that it always ends up changing it where that the competition is a lot of just point sparring, or
Right.
tapping or touching.
I think you're right, because you have certain equipment that could register that. Obviously, your sparring kind of changes up a little bit, right? So different environment changes things up, right?
Yeah.
So what might you have if you have a vest that you're wearing and it's counting the points?
Yeah.
You might find yourself turning your body a little bit more so that it doesn't register.
Yeah.
And so then the umpire is going to have to go, whoa, warning, right?
Yeah.
Don't turn your back or something like that.
Yeah.
You might find yourself keeping your hands up a little bit more, though, to protect techniques from coming in and hitting the target.
Yeah.
Which could be a good thing.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I think those kind of things can dictate the way sparring is concerned.
I do like the point sparring with the electronic where you can see the points coming in. And I do like when you do have the patterns and it's broken down based on, your categories and they allocate points. So because of this
You're
competition...
talking about the electronic
Yeah.
scoring system,
The electronic scoring
not
system.
on the body, or
Right.
anything, but actually seeing it on the screen
Yeah.
and how the umpires are
Right.
voting.
Right. I think, so this time we couldn't do the patterns. It was all based on flags, which we've talked about before. And that's how General Che originally just wanted to do it, was with flags, because you look at people and you go, yeah, that looks better than others.
Right.
But that can also change how people perform the patterns, or which patterns also can win as well, because maybe it's more like the prettier patterns.
Or more difficult patterns.
Or more difficult patterns, or
Sure.
Even just like, let's say, leg control. That could win. That could just be the end factor, just because right in that moment the judges see kind of like, oh wow, that was nice leg control, let's just say that.
Right.
And then that's the one that wins. But then you're not accounting for other sections of categories.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I think the original idea is that you have two competitors compete against each other, and you go, that guy is definitely better than the other one. It's just obvious. But we've kind of come to a impasse in a way, because a lot of people are really good, and then
Yeah.
you go, well,
It's such a toss-up.
It's such a toss-up, and it becomes almost to that little details.
Yeah.
Of what is, that's how I vote anyway. I'll start looking at, did their footwork, was that correct? Were they wavering? Or, just little details that might make a difference. Intermediate hand position, this person had it one way versus the other person. But they have equal amount of rhythm and power, basically technique. And so those little details is kind of, I think, is a difference. However, from an umpire point of view, you have to have umpires that see those kind of things and that are aware of it.
Right.
So you have to have a lot of experience, and that's true for umpiring in general.
Right.
It's subjective in a way.
Yeah. That reminds me of one of the rounds we were watching, and one of the competitors, he did a high punch, but it was supposed to be a middle punch. But everything else was much better, right? But he ended up losing, so, it's... so when you're doing the flags, like I do know when we do it in our in-house tournaments, I'm just looking for that one thing, and you go, made a mistake, okay, well, I'm looking at the other guy now, right?
Yeah, so I guess that's a good question. You said that just the technical part, right? And that's why we have these three different categories. We have power, technical, and rhythm.
Yeah.
And so you score it based on that. And so if the person has made a small error, such as a middle punch versus a high punch, that is a technical error. But if, like what you're saying, the power and the rhythm was actually far superior to the other person, in my mind, that person should still win.
Right, but if you're just doing it based on flags, I think, for me, it would be more like, he made a mistake. The technical would over trump everything.
Right.
Just based on how I've done it before.
Right.
When you look at color belts.
Again, I think that could be a difference between how an umpire would score.
Right.
I mean, if I saw something that wasn't obviously that bad of a mistake, like they stumbled or something. They forgot.
Yeah.
And basically, overall, the pattern was better. Power, rhythm. I probably still scored, even if they did make that mistake. Even on the flag system, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, I think that's important too, because umpires are an important aspect of winning or losing, and how they judge things. And that's, you want at a world championship, obviously you want a balanced umpire staff, just like in a local tournament. If you've got local clubs coming in, I would definitely highly recommend, hey, let's make it a balance. A couple of your guys on the umpire boards, as well as a couple of my guys, right? So that is balanced. And then it's not because umpires cheat or do they favor one thing or another. Well, of course they do. If I have an umpire that trains with me, and whatever I teach them, that's kind of what they think is correct. But then you could go to a different school and go, well, we don't teach it that way.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's there's going to be a discrepancy. And so when it comes to competition, my students will do certain things, and my umpires will probably go, that looks right. And the other umpire from a different school will say, that's not right. So they might vote against that. And so is that right or wrong? And I don't call it favoritism. I think it's just what
you see the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you think.
What they think is correct.
Right.
And so having an IIC, or obviously getting together more often, brings that standard more in line. And that's also true with the World Championships. I mean, you could say it's all from one country, from different countries, but if you have a bunch of umpires that are from North America, they might see something different than they are from South America.
Right.
And so if it's not balanced in that way, you're not getting a balanced overall judge.
Well, that's why it's important to continue competing.
And umpiring.
But, if you compete often, then you're going to, whether you win or lose, you're on the track of knowing what's right and what's wrong.
Right. And that's also another problem, too, I think. Because when people become world champions, like let's say specifically we're talking about like patterns, sparring may not be a little bit different just because that's more of a point system.
Yeah.
And it's whether you see a point being scored or not. But when you're talking about patterns, sometimes you'll see techniques and you go, that is not the way it's performed in the encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And yet there's a world champion, people see that and they go, oh, that must be the way to do it. And all of a sudden you get people starting to do the patterns more in that fashion, which may not be correct.
Right.
When you're in Rome, you do
as the Romans do.
Yeah. Oh, did you see that side piercing kick? It was super high, even though it was supposed to be middle.
Right.
And that leg control, that was perfect. And, well, if that's what's winning, I guess that's kind of what you have to do.
Right. Let us know your thoughts on the World Championships if you guys were there. I think some other groups had another big tournament going on, actually like that weekend too or something.
Really?
Yeah, I think I saw something like that. But
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
We weren't there.
Just let us know your thoughts on these big tournaments. And as always, don't forget to be safe.
Keep training.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Taekwon.